Warning: the following reading contains content that some listeners may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Luna's royal guard stood before the Canterlot Castle in 2 rows of 3. They wore dark armor of blue and black. Most of the guards were bat ponies, and their black bat wings were curled up against their sides as they stood up straight. The sun began to sink below the western horizon. Soaring on her dark wings, Princess Luna approached the castle. She fluttered her wings a few times to slow herself down until she allowed herself to land on the bridge leading to the castle.
Soldiers, attention!
The soldiers' recruits snapped to attention under the firm voice of the second in command. As Luna walked, her horn glowed a brilliant blue. As this happened, the moon began to rise behind her. It was a full moon tonight, and it was beautiful. She walked through the 2 rows of the night guards, who straightened themselves when she walked past. As Luna walked into the castle, the gates shut behind her. In front of her was the captain of the guard, Alma. Alma was a bat pony who had gray fur with dark white fur on her hooves. Her bat wings were pitch black, and her eyes were a dark ocean blue. Her purple mane had blue light streaks in it. Her hair swayed side to side as she took off her helmet before the Princess of the Night. She adjusted her glasses before she spoke.
Your Majesty.
She addressed Luna as she bowed her head.
Good evening, Captain.
Luna nodded in acknowledgement.
Rise and report.
Alma stood up from her bow as she nodded.
Yes, Princess. More rumors are growing beyond Las Pegasus. Now there is talk of a creature named Typhon in the biggest cities in Equestria. And even Saddle Arabia has heard news of this growing power.
Luna frowned. For the last few months there had been talk of a powerful creature named Typhon. No one knows who or what Typhon is. Only a few weeks ago it has been confirmed that Typhon had a cult following. It hasn't been proven dangerous so far, but Luna was still keeping an eye out for any news on the matter. Luna nodded in thanks to Alma.
Thank you, Alma.
She smiled.
You will lead the watch tonight.
Alma saluted.
Yes, Your Majesty.
The toll of the bell signaled the end of the night shift. Alma trotted to the armory. She had worked a little later than the rest of the night guards, so she was the last one in the castle. The only guards left were the daytime guards, who were just getting to their stations. Alma passed a few daytime guards in the golden armor on the way. There were 3 of them walking past her, all 3 of which she recognized. She kept on walking until she heard magic ignite. Suddenly, she tripped over something. With a yelp, she ungracefully fell to the ground. It only took a moment to realize that it was the unicorn daytime guard that had used his magic to trip her. She heard the 3 of the golden armored ponies snickering behind her. "Moon liquor," she heard one of them sneer. Alma gathered what little dignity she had left, stood up straight, and marched down towards the armory once again. Once she got there, she threw open the door and walked in, letting the door swing shut behind her on its own. Alma sighed and took off her helmet with her hooves. She scratched her scalp with her left hoof. This helmet sure got itchy after a while of wearing it. She stripped herself of all her dark armor and hung it up on her rack. She left the armory, yawning as she did so. Daytime was hard for a nocturnal bat pony. She trotted down the stairs, passing a daytime guard as she did so. She stopped in her tracks and whipped her head around. That guard didn't look familiar at all.
Hey.
She called. The pony looked over his shoulder. Who, me? The pony was a unicorn. He had a chocolate brown coat and black hair that was barely visible with the golden helmet he wore. His brown eyes were a lighter color than his fur, and his tail was tied in a big braid. Alma nodded.
Yeah, I haven't seen you around here before. You new?
Yeah, I'm new. I have a short shift today. You know, because I'm new and all.
What's your name, rookie?
My name? The unicorn asked, his eyes wide. Alma raised an eyebrow.
Yes.
Well, it's, The unicorn hesitated. It's Ambalo.
Ambalo, huh?
Alma said.
Well, welcome aboard. I'm Alma.
Ambalo smiled. Thanks, Alma. Ambalo dashed up the stairs, almost as if he was in a hurry to get away. Alma shrugged. He had stuff to do. To save herself some time, Alma flew home. Usually she walked because she liked to take in the sights of Canterlot, but today she just wasn't in the mood. Alma owned a small apartment with her oldest sister, which was right outside of town square, so naturally it got pretty busy in the streets outside. As Alma flew home, she couldn't get the unicorn Ambalo out of her head. There was something about him that seemed off somehow, but she just couldn't put a hoof on it. Alma landed and began to walk down a sidewalk along a busy street. She went inside of the apartment building she lived in. She stepped into an elevator. It was creaky, it only had one dim light, and it smelled like spoiled milk. Alma either didn't mind the smell or had just gotten used to it. She pressed a glowing button with the number 3 on it. The slow and creaky elevator began its journey upwards. The doors parted open and Alma walked down a hallway. The hallway walls were a pale white, and the doors on either side of the hallway were painted a dull blue. Some doors had some kind of flair, like flowers or some stickers, but most were plain blue. Alma opened the door to the small apartment and shut the door behind her.
Stella!
She shouted.
I'm home!
A pause.
I know!
Alma heard a shout from the kitchen. Alma rolled her eyes at Stella's response. Alma trotted into the kitchen and her jaw dropped. The sink was filled to the ceiling with dirty dishes, pots, and pans. Stella was sitting on the living room sofa, eating something out of a bowl with a spoon. Her turquoise hair was tied up in a messy bun. Alma couldn't pull her eyes away from the monstrosity before her.
Stella,
She snapped.
what is this?
I was cooking.
Stella answered without even looking back at her sister.
What the hell did you even make?
Stella took a bite of her food.
Cereal.
Alma deadpanned.
You know, you should really get out of the house.
Stella rolled her eyes.
I have a job, genius.
In a crappy restaurant.
Alma shot back.
I mean, you could get a real job.
Stella could see where this was going.
Don't even start.
Alma didn't listen.
As a soldier.
No.
In Princess Luna's night guard.
Alma finished.
No!
Stella groaned dramatically.
We went over this. I don't wanna.
She pouted. Alma sighed.
Alright, I'm off to bed. And you should go too, Stella.
I'm not a damn nocturnal pony.
Stella groaned.
What's your fucking language?
Alma snapped. Stella exhaled quickly.
Go to bed then. I'll clean everything up. Don't worry.
Alma nodded in satisfaction.
Good.
Alma was in bed with her covers up to her neck and her curtains drawn close to block the sunlight. She snuggled deeper into bed as she got comfortable. She snored softly as she slept pleasantly. Alma's eyes shot open as someone knocked on her bedroom door.
Alma!
Stella called from the other side of the door.
A letter came in for you.
Alma stumbled out of bed, her covers still wrapped around her. She opened the door as she yawned. Stella held out a letter to Alma.
This just came in. It's from Dad.
Alma's eyebrows shot up in surprise. This was certainly unexpected. Alma took the letter from Stella's hooves and began to read.
Dear Alma and Stella, I'm sorry to inform you that you cannot come to visit this year. I have too much business to do, and I simply don't have time at all this year. I hope you'll understand. With love, Dad.
That's odd.
Alma commented. Stella nodded her head in agreement.
Yeah.
Every year, Alma and Stella would visit their father in Ponyville. Usually when he was busy, he would simply reschedule. But this time, he's saying that he doesn't have the time at all this year.
You think he's alright?
Stella asked.
This is really unlike him.
Alma adjusted her glasses as she read over the letter again. Her eyes widened.
Wait, look.
She pointed her hoof at the letter.
You see, his writing is rushed. That means something must be wrong.
But how do we know for sure?
Stella asked.
Well, a quick visit to make sure he's okay won't hurt.
Alma shrugged her shoulders.
Pack your bag, Stella. We're going to Ponyville.
The train ride to Ponyville took forever. Alma didn't do well with long rides, so she was beginning to feel a little motion sick. But Stella didn't seem to be affected with motion sickness at all. She was reading a magazine without a care in the world. Alma couldn't understand how Stella did it. Whenever she read in a moving train or carriage, she would get a splitting headache, and she would be affected by it for the rest of the day. Stella didn't have this problem, which infuriated Alma greatly. The train stopped.
Ponyville Station!
The conductor yelled.
Ponyville Station!
Alma and Stella grabbed their suitcases and trotted outside on the wooden platform of the Ponyville station. Alma always liked this little town. It was cozy and everyone was friendly, but it was bombarded by the ever-free forest, which unsettled her. The two sisters trotted down into town. Many ponies looked at them when they walked, but there were a couple of colts and fillies that stared in awe. When Alma and Stella reached their father's house, Stella slowly raised her right hoof and knocked on the door. A pause. The brown wooden door opened inwards, and in front of them was their father, Haden.
Girls?
Dad!
Stella beamed. She almost tackled him in a hug.
Are you okay? What happened? I bet something happened, didn't it?
Haden gently pried his oldest daughter off of him.
No, nothing's wrong.
He lowered his voice into a whisper.
What are you two doing here? I told you I'm busy.
Alma stepped forward.
Well, your letter seemed so rushed and out of character for you. We just wanted to make sure you're right. That's all.
Haden's wings shifted in place nervously.
Girls, listen to me. You need to get out of here, right?
Mr. Aster?
A pony stepped out of the house from behind Haden. The pony was a white unicorn with a golden mane and tail. He had bright blue eyes. dark hooves, and his cutie mark was a big red X. The white unicorn looked at Alma and Stella with a raised eyebrow.
Mr. Aster, who's this?
These are my daughters,
Haden presented them.
Stella and Alma. They came here from Canterlot.
He looked at his daughters.
Girls, this is my business partner, Mr. Jara Haden.
Jara bowed his head in greeting.
It's an honor to meet Mr. Aster's daughters. Your father had told me so much about you two.
Haden cleared his throat.
Yes, but me and Mr. Haden were just going over business with me, girls.
He sounded nervous, but Alma just couldn't figure out why.
And we have so much more to do.
Haden tried to maneuver Jara back into the house.
So, if you'll excuse us.
Jara respectfully dismissed the bat pony.
Now, Mr. Aster. Your daughters came all the way here to see you. I think it would be cruel to send them on their way so soon. Especially when there's no trains back to Canterlot. Was it? Yes, Canterlot. There are no trains back to Canterlot until Saturday, and it's Thursday.
Haden's eyes shifted nervously.
But...
No buts about it, Mr. Aster.
Jara interrupted him.
Your daughters are more than welcome to stay here while we discuss business. They won't interfere, I promise you.
Haden sighed.
Well, okay.
Stella and Alma trotted into the house after Haden and Jara. Just as Stella set her bag down on the floor, she looked up into the dining room. She yelled and jumped back. There were two other ponies sitting at the dining room table. One unicorn was light gray with a brown mane and tail, and he had white eyes. The other unicorn had a snow-white fur coat, and he had a black mane and tail. Both of the unicorns had dark hooves.
I didn't know there were other ponies here.
Stella said.
Yes.
Jara said.
These are my employees, Miss Aster.
It's just Stella, please.
Very well, Stella.
Jara corrected himself.
This is Zagan, and this is Rome.
The unicorn with brown hair, Rome, nodded his head toward Stella in greeting. The black-haired one, Zagan, did the same. Haden clicked his tongue.
All right, so, girls, would you mind just going upstairs for a little while?
He began to lead Alma and Stella towards the stairs.
So you can unpack and settle down. And so, me and Jara can finish up here.
Alma turned her head towards her dad as they walked up the stairs.
What are you guys talking about anyways?
Haden hesitated.
Well...
Stella intervened.
I don't think it's our business, Alma.
Yes. Well said, Stella.
They reached the top of the stairs and Stella opened the door to the guest bedroom. As she and Alma walked in with their suitcases, Haden began to close the door slowly.
Love you.
He smiled at them before he shut the door rather hurriedly. Alma raised an eyebrow.
Is Dad acting a little weird to you?
Stella unzipped her suitcase.
Yeah, but he was telling the truth on the letter he sent us.
She pulled her hairbrush out of her suitcase.
I mean, he was in the middle of a business meeting, and we came in unannounced. I don't blame him for being a little bit stressed.
Alma nodded and sighed.
Yeah, I guess so.
But she wasn't convinced. Alma had the sneaking suspicion that something wasn't right here. She pressed her ear against the door, listening for anyone's voice from downstairs.
I'm sorry, gentlemen.
Alma heard Haden's muffled voice from downstairs.
That wasn't expected.
Mr. Aster,
Alma heard Jara's voice now.
we cannot have any more interruptions if this is to be done right. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Jara sounded satisfied.
Now, Mr. Aster, do you have everything prepared for tonight?
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Alma could practically hear Jara smile.
Now it must be done tonight. Tonight is our only opportunity.
Mr. Haden,
Haden spoke.
I don't think...
Don't interrupt me.
Jara hissed.
We made a deal with you. If you back out now, you know what will happen. Do what you promised to do.
Silence. Alma heard her father sigh.
Okay. Deal. But please don't break your promise either.
I never break my promises, Mr. Aster.
Jara said.
Never.
Alma took her ear away from the door. What in the world were they talking about? What deal? She shook her head. Maybe she was just overthinking it, that's all. It was probably just a new business or something. Yes, that was probably it. Her dad did, after all, own the hardware store. Stella came out of the bathroom attached to the guest bedroom, her hair in a messy bun and dressed in saggy pajamas.
You coming to bed or not?
Alma looked out of the window. The sun was setting. Although she usually slept during the daytime, today was a long and tiresome day. She was really tired. Alma let out a yawn as she took off her glasses and set them on the bedside table. She crawled into the twin-sized bed, and Stella crawled into the other bed across the room.
Good night, Stella.
Alma said.
Night.
Stella said before she turned off the lamp and the whole room went dark. Celestia's sun had set many hours ago, and her sister's moon was high in the sky, the crescent orb glowing ever so slightly. The dark and jeweled sky outside was the darkest it had ever been that month, and it seemed to be getting darker by the second. A white pony made its way to Alma and Stella's bedroom door. Its dark hoof reached out to the doorknob. The lock turned on the outside of the guest bedroom door, ensuring that the Bad Pony sisters wouldn't get out. The pony made its way back downstairs and into the dark basement. Alma awoke with a gasp. She didn't know what made her wake up, but something had just made her heart lurch in her chest while she slept. She grabbed her glasses from the nightstand and put them on her nose. She ripped the sheets off of her bed and hurried to Stella's bed.
Stella.
She whispered as she shook her sister's shoulder.
Stella, wake up.
Stella moaned as she sat up groggily.
What?
She asked through her yawn as she rubbed her eyes.
I think there's something wrong.
Alma whisper shouted.
What makes you say that?
Stella asked. As if on cue, a huge shattering sound was heard from the outside of the door. The sisters looked at each other, their eyes widened with panic. Stella leaped out of bed, her tiredness suddenly gone. She grabbed the doorknob, but it didn't turn.
What the?
She tried again. It was the same result.
The door's locked!
Stella shrieked as she tried to pry the door open.
Stand back.
Alma shouted. Stella hurriedly obeyed her sister, stepping out of the way. Alma bolted towards the door and slammed her body against it with a grunt. The wood cracked slightly as her body weight slammed against it. She tried again. The wood cracked again. 3 more times she slammed against the door until finally the door came crashing down. Alma and Stella flew downstairs. The house was completely dark and no one seemed to be around.
Dad?
Alma asked into the darkness.
Dad!
Another shattering sound was heard. It sounded like it was coming from the basement. The 2 bad ponies burst into the basement and ran down the old wooden stairs. Alma and Stella stopped in their tracks, confused at what they saw. Jara, Rome, and Zagan were all standing around a stone pillar, all of their horns ignited. All of them turned to face the sisters, anger in their eyes.
What's going on?
Stella demanded. Jara sighed.
I never wanted it to come to this.
He tossed his head with his horn still ignited with purple magic. Suddenly, the door to the basement slammed behind Alma and Stella.
Jara! Please! Don't hurt them!
Alma's eyes went wide. There, standing in the middle of the circle, was their father.
Dad?
Stella stammered.
What's going on? What's happening?
Alma's mind was going 1,000,000 miles an hour. What was going on?
Now, Mr. Aster,
Jara talked to Haden condescendingly.
you remember what'll happen if you back out now.
Fear flashed in Haden's eyes.
No! No! Please!
He cried out.
What's happening, Dad?
Stella said.
What'll happen? What will he do?
He'll kill you!
Haden screamed.
Both of you! If you don't do this, you'll both die! That was the deal the whole time!
Alma felt her blood run cold.
That was the deal you talked about earlier.
Her voice was barely a whisper. Jara sighed as he rolled his eyes.
Yes. Your father was hesitant to swear to the code of the Tadema. But after my deal, he could just refuse.
The Tadema?
Stella said.
What's that?
Jara smiled wickedly.
We are the Tadema. Our one goal is to serve him.
Him?
Alma asked.
Who is him?
Jara smiled.
He is the Almighty, the first true king of the other world.
He spoke in an unnaturally blissful tone of voice.
He came to me in a vision. He told me what to do to set him free. There was only one species in Equestria that could do it.
Bat ponies.
Alma finished with a fearful whisper. Jara smiled.
Yes, indeed, Miss Aster. Bat ponies are the only ones left who still know of the ancient language. I just simply chose a bat pony that wasn't significant. A bat pony who wouldn't be missed.
He sneered.
A moonlicker whose death would go unnoticed.
Stella's eyes squinted with anger.
Don't fucking say that to my father again! You sack of poorly packaged buffalo shit!
Jara scoffed.
Oh, someone has a temper, doesn't she?
Stella's anger burned in her chest. She began to run towards Jara.
Why, you?
Stella was thrown backwards as she slammed into an invisible magical shield. As she hit the force field, a bright blue light shone. She hit the ground hard, grunting as she made contact with the hard concrete floor. Jara laughed mockingly.
Did you moonlickers really think that we came unprepared? You're stupider than you look.
The sisters watched helplessly as they witnessed the scene before them. Haden, with tears in his eyes, picked up a large book from the floor and opened it. He began to read from it out loud. He began to speak in a language that the sisters had never heard before. His voice echoed throughout the basement.
Alright! Oh, my cousin, come, row up, well, let's have all aberrant from your ton, Tagaria, oh, Javi, soy, what do, what for no longer eat you, cause have heard your bag of the gold must be void, Tagamon war, the grease your void, Naga clan, well, Eric, toy.
Silence. The room held its breath as they all waited for something, anything to happen. Alma and Stella couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief when nothing seemed to happen. Alma's eyes wandered to the center of the circle where her father stood. A soft red glow began to emit from the book he held. A huge explosion came forth from the book, knocking everyone in the room back several feet. A shattering sound was heard as the magical force field around the Tadema broke upon impact from the explosion. A natural whiz began to whip around the room, stinging Alma's eyes.
Dad, what did you do?
I'm sorry! I'm so sorry! I didn't want this to happen! I didn't want to do this!
Jara stood up, staring at the red glow in wonder.
Yes.
He smiled.
Yes, my lord. Come forth from the void. Come, and we shall aid you as you reclaim your power. We shall aid you as you reclaim your world.
The glow began to brighten as the winds intensified.
Oh, come to us, Lord Typhon.
Alma's eyes widened. She heard that name before, Typhon. Her stomach filled with dread. The red light began to take form. Jara's eyes filled with glee as Roman Zagan flanked him. The three all had blissful smiles on their faces. Haden's eyes filled with tears as he looked upon his daughters. He had kept his promise. He has fulfilled what he was meant to do. But was it worth it? Jara turned his head to Haden.
Rejoice, Mr. Aster. You have helped with the birth of something beautiful. The birth of a new era.
Haden only shook his head.
No. What I've helped create is nothing short of monstrous!
Jara reached out a hoof to Haden.
If you hold up your end of the code, you and your daughters will have a place in the new kingdom. You will all be held in Typhon's highest regard. You will be safe from his wrath.
Suddenly, a hoof kicked Jara square in the jaw, making him grunt and fall hard to the floor. Roman and Zagan whipped their heads around to see Alma.
You won't be safe from my wrath, bitch.
Alma yelled as she reached her hind legs and bucked Rome square in the face. Zagan yelled as his horn ignited with magic. Alma ducked out of the way from the magic blast. From seemingly out of nowhere, Stella jumped on Zagan's back, making his knees buckle from the unexpected weight. Jara stood up from the floor, his forehead bleeding heavily from where Alma kicked him. He stared Haden straight in the eye.
I will spare your daughters if you hold up your end of the code.
His end of the code? Haden hung his head. If his daughters were to be spared, he must aid in Typhon's rise and eventually his reign. That is the code of the Tadema. If he fails, he dies. He wasn't worried about himself dying. It was the next part of the code that frightened him. If he died before he fulfilled his task, his responsibilities would fall onto his eldest child, Stella. If he backed out now, Stella would most certainly die. And if Stella dies, there would be no chance that the Tadema would ever leave Alma alive either. Haden watched as the red glow began to take on a more distinguishable form. There, standing on the pillar, was a pony.
Yes. At long last, I'm finally free from my confinement.
Its horn was crooked and sickly. Its brown fur was so dark it was almost black. It had pitch black hair that spilled over its shoulders. It had huge dark brown bat-like wings upon its back, and its glowing red eyes pierced Haden's soul. Alma felt herself shrink back at the sight of the large pony looming over everyone. Everyone knew who this was. No one had to say his name. Typhon. Jara let out a joyful shout.
My lord!
He immediately bowed his head.
We have heard your call, and you have been set free. We are your faithful servants, and we shall do anything you ask.
At his words, Roman Zagan bowed to Typhon as well.
Tell us what must be done to restore your full power, and it shall be done.
Before the dark pony could say anything, Alma rammed the stone pillar Typhon stood upon. He crashed to the ground, shattering into pieces. Typhon took flight. The thrum as he flapped his huge wings sent a slight breeze onto Alma's face, carrying a scent of like that of blood. Typhon looked at Alma, anger burning in his eyes.
You foolish mortal! You dare try to challenge me?
He swooped down, picking Alma up by the scruff of her neck with his sharp teeth. Alma turned her head to her older sister, who was frozen in fear.
Run! Stella, run!
Alma shrieked.
Run!
Before Stella could even process what was happening, Typhon tossed his head to the side, letting go of the dark bat pony in his grasp. Alma was tossed to the side with an amazing force. She screamed as she soared through the air. Her scream was cut off as her head hit the concrete wall. A sickening crack was heard as her head made impact with the wall. She fell to the floor limply.
Alma!
Haden shrieked. He rushed to her side, holding her head in his hooves. She wasn't dead, thanks Celestia, but she was hurt badly. He clutched onto his youngest daughter as he tearfully looked up at Stella.
Fly away, Stella!
He cried.
Don't let them find you! Whatever you do, don't let them find you!
Stella hesitated.
Please, Stella!
Haden cried.
Run!
In panic, Stella ran out of the basement, flying up the stairs 2 at a time. She burst from the front door of the house, immediately taking flight as soon as she was outside. She silently cried herself as she flew away as fast as she could. She wished she could have saved her father and sister, but it seemed like there was no time to do so. She soon disappeared into the night. Haden looked at Typhon defiantly as he clutched onto Alma's slim figure tighter. Typhon gazed at him for a moment before beckoning him.
Come, Haden Aster.
He said,
Fulfill your purpose.
Haden hesitated. He was frozen. He didn't know what to do. He stared at Typhon's glossy red eyes in fear. He saw Jara, Rome, and Zagan all standing behind Typhon looking at Haden expectantly. Haden then made a decision. His mind protested against it, but his body and instinct said otherwise. Before he could give it another thought, his body reacted. He ran. With all his might, he lifted Alma onto his shoulders and ran out of the basement as fast as he could. Jara growled.
Coward!
He was about to run after him, but Typhon's hoof stopped him from doing so.
Leave him.
Typhon said. Jara's eyes widened in shock.
What? But my lord!
Haden Aster knew what would happen when he betrayed the code. He knew what would happen when he betrayed me.
Typhon tossed his head to the side.
Justice will come for him soon enough.
And with that, Typhon disappeared in a cloud of red smoke, leaving Jara, Rome, and Zagan alone. Jara sighed.
We must wait for Lord Typhon. He does not have all of his strength. He must regain it.
He turned to the other 2 unicorns.
Until Typhon returns, we must be discreet. Understand?
Rome and Zagan nodded their heads in understanding. Haden's legs went as fast as they could, his heart pounding so hard, so fast that it began to hurt. His whole body felt like it was on fire, but he pushed past it. The pain was temporary, and he would thank himself later for not giving up. Was the Tadema following them? He certainly didn't know, but he wasn't about to take any chances. He ran to the nearest train station. He saw that a train was about to leave. Without thinking, he flew onto the roof of the caboose of the train. Since it was still nighttime, he could blend in with the darkness, ensuring that no one would find him. He gently let Alma off his back. Her eyes were still closed and her breath was steady. She needed a hospital, but he couldn't take her to the one in Ponyville. The Tadema would find her. He was going to ride this train until it reached the end of its tracks. He was going to go to the farthest town from Ponyville. He prayed to Luna that Stella would do the same. The whole Canterlot Castle was buzzing. The news of what happened in Ponyville 3 nights ago was all the rage. Witnesses say they saw a red glowing light from a house's basement windows. Then suddenly, a bat pony burst from the front door of the house crying before she took flight, never to be seen again. Soon after, another bat pony came from the house with someone on his back. He then ran away into the night. Ambalo, the day guard, heard of this story in the middle of his shift. His brown eyes widened when he heard the story. A red glow. It sounded all too familiar. It was what he had been searching for. Ambalo walked into the empty armory and set his golden helmet on the rack. He looked out of the window, his eyes hardening with determination. "I finally have you, Typhon." He spat. "You may have taken my form, but I still will find you." The brown unicorn took off the rest of his armor, not needing it anymore. He was going to leave Canterlot tonight. No one would even notice that he was gone. No one in the castle would miss him. They didn't even know his real name. He wasn't even a real royal guard. And with that, Tyrius walked out of the castle, his destination, Ponyville.
Tazy Scribbles, we meet at last.
What the? Who's there? Where are you?
Look to your left.
Who the fuck are you?
That's an odd way of asking some pony their name. You can call me Typhon.
How do you know my name? And what do you want?
I know far more about you than you think, and I've come to make an offer.
What? What do you mean?
I've been watching you for quite some time, Tizzy. I know that you were once a happy mare that owned a shop in Appleby. One day you met a lovely mare named Stella Aster. It was love at first sight between you two. Soon enough, you were engaged to get married until a pony named Jara finished her off. Poor girl. Imagine being killed in such a way.
Don't you fucking dare speak of her death!
My apologies, but in the end, Jara got what was coming to him.
Jara? Don't even mention that bastard's name! Because of him, I lost everything!
Indeed. Which is why I've come to you to make an offer.
What offer?
I can bring your beloved Stella back, but first, you'll have to do something for me.
Bullshit. You're lying.
I wouldn't lie about something like that, Tezzy. I have special abilities beyond your imagination. If you accept my offer, there is something you must do for me first.
And what do you need me to do?